What's up, everybody? Vince Perri here, your business broker, exit strategist, entrepreneur, here to really introduce you to Jeremy Kloter. In this conversation, it was phenomenal. We basically went all in on property management here in the Tampa Bay area and how he's managed to scale his business to 200 plus doors throughout the Tampa Bay area and how he's using AI automation. We go heavy into AI automation and his systems and processes and how he's able to ultimately run his company, scale his company, and just have legit fire systems and processes running throughout the entire state of Florida with all of his doors. So you're not going to want to miss this. Stay tuned right now. Make sure that you like, that you subscribe, and you hit that bell because we've got a new guest coming on every single Monday, solo show on Wednesdays, and I go live every Friday as well. So make sure you like, subscribe, and follow me on social media, and let's get right into it with Jeremy Kloter. Welcome, everybody, to the show, Beyond the Claim podcast. I'm very excited today because we have a very special guest. I always say we have a special guest, to be honest, but...
Yeah, you're not making me feel better about myself, but it's all right.
This one is a special guest. Before that, introduce myself. My name is Vince Perri, business broker, public adjuster, acquisition specialist, and I like to have people on the show that are not only interesting, but I like to have people on the show that are very business savvy and entrepreneurial, and you've got that entrepreneurial and that creative touch that you were telling me about.
You're flattering me.
But seriously, I did want to start the show, which you may or may not expect, by literally thanking you because you know that, but I've told you before, you were one of the first people that when I moved to Tampa from Miami, I didn't know anybody in town. And I don't remember how we met, but I remember that you were like super cool, bro. I texted you, you responded, I asked you to meet up and we met up and you introduced me to some people as well. You've sent me referrals for public adjusting over the years. And I just want to tell you that I'm extremely grateful for that, man.
No, I appreciate that. I think it's a testament to, having a long relationship at this point. And it must have been, a networking event or some of the investing stuff. And so
it was a TB event.
Yeah, so it's just like, that's just it. That's like with these networking groups, I don't do many of the paid ones anymore, but it was like I was always able to just refer a lot. And I think that's one of the things that's helped us get to where we're at, just the relationship part of it. It's like, being transparent, just like we're here to stay and just, being born and raised in the area. So yeah, man.
But you're a connector. You're a connector. I'm a connector too. I'm the same way. And you were just open to like, who the hell is this guy? I don't even know who this is. But like I texted you.
But you're easy to talk to too. It's not like talking to a wall or something.
That's true.
You have some personality. You can carry a conversation so you don't feel like it's an effort to try to like just talk.
Yeah.
Like what we're doing today. We're just chilling.
So we've got Jeremy Kloter here. Jeremy is the owner of Outfast Property Management. He's the founder and broker with over 10 years of experience in real estate. So we're going to get into the running of your business. We're going to get into the real estate market as it is. But before we get into all of that, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so born and raised here in the area and, just went to high school locally, but went to the military, the Marine Corps right out of high school. So that was 2009 and was in until about 2015. Did security work at U.S. embassies, studied for my real estate stuff before I got out, always reading books and stuff about just business before I had them, real estate investing before I was able to do it. And just kind of like thinking about that path. So like, just tons of that stuff through my whole time in service. Got my bachelor's while I was in, and but the plan was to get into real estate. And so even took the real estate test as an agent, got out, started just doing traditional sales. And, 2 years in, got my broker's license. We launched the real estate brokers. Then we launched the property management company. Then my wife, she had moved here in 2015 from when we met in Dominican Republic, so I was stationed in Haiti. They're on the same island. And and then, transferred her architecture license, saw experience, opened up her architecture firm. So we've, had our hand at mortgages and different things in the past. But it all sort of started from that interest in real estate investing and, what were some of the businesses that were complementary to doing that and owning our own assets, being able to manage them once we built them or buy them was sort of the concept to have a couple different verticals and was able to get my toes dipped into the real estate investing space in like 2013. I was in Japan and I did a small loan to somebody in the US flipping a mobile home. And that was kind of my interest. First time I made money, made like 10% in 2 months. It was like, cool. So that was kind of what kicked it off. So, and then from there, just continued to build the business and just, stuff here locally, mostly Tampa Bay area.
So you were abroad. You were still in the Marine Corps when you started doing all this?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, just the investing piece, the businesses were once we were stateside here locally, but yeah, just had some people that were already sort of in the space that I knew from high school. Was that specific first deal that I did.
When did you make that decision that you were going to go all in on real estate? Just
pretty early
industry.
on after like high school, I was like, okay, like a lot of people make their wealth in real estate, or you hear that. I don't know where that quote came from. I don't even know if it's accurate, but
Who are those people?
It's like 80% of people make wealth in real estate. And I've actually looked, I don't know if I can find the originating person that actually said that or the percentage, if it's even right, but I was like, cool. Like that sounds cool. Like a lot of benefits to investing. It's different. I wanted to not be in the military for, long term. And cause I didn't feel like you get really properly rewarded for sort of entrepreneurial spirit and sort of how you run stuff, right? So I was like, all right, I'm going to go into real estate and we'll try that. And then sort of morphed into getting really heavy into the management side. But it's like nobody really starts a property management company like with that in mind. We all sort of fall into it and sort of ramp it up. And so, but yeah, it was always just a thought of like wanting to own investment properties, that sort of stuff. And not coming from a family that traditionally knew about investing, where I was sort of like the first one to kind of really get toes wet. And so been able to share that with family too. So yeah, just kind of like starting from scratch really.
How long were you in the Marine Corps?
About 6 years.
6 years? Mm-hmm. And when you came out, you dove in head first?
Yeah. So got out, no job. Like I think I had like less than 10 grand in my name at the time. And wife was able to come. She was on a visa, but moved in with my parents.
You got married while you were in the Marine Corps?
Just after.
Okay.
Yeah. So the last 3 years, I couldn't get married while I was in because of the program I was on. So 2015, got out, January, got married, so wife couldn't work here for, I think it was like a year or something. And then I had like just savings and just started in sales, dude. And so just no income and limited savings and just door knocking, just like all the, the bootstrap stuff and kick off a real estate career on doing the sales. So I did sales for about 2 years. Had, 25 to 35 deals within the first 2 years or something, and then just started going heavy on some of the other stuff.
When you say sales and when you say deals, you just mean just as like a typical real estate agent?
Yeah, just traditional buyers and sellers. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. And just looking for homes to sell.
Yeah,
ultimately.
I did some
How was the
wholesaling
market
too, though.
back then?
That was a great time. So that would have been 2015, 16, 17. So it was a great time. So yeah, I did a couple wholesale deals in there too. And that's sort of, I think how we met was I started to go to the Tampa Bay Real Estate Investors Association meetings like in that same year. Everyone I could go to like expand my network and education. And that's how I started doing some deals where I would find the seller that wanted to sell for cash. And then I would link up with Greg. He might help me find a buyer for the deal and we'd wholesale it. So we did a few of those. And that was sort of what kicked our relationship to like sort of build what we've built so far.
One thing I always liked about those meetups and those groups and just the real estate industry in general is that the real estate industry is interesting because there's not really competition amongst real estate agents and amongst investors and amongst all, like, I feel like everyone's sort of working together. Am I wrong about that?
I think it's definitely changed. I think it depends on the culture of the company that the agents are at, sort of openness. I think your younger generation is much more open to sharing ideas, or you're like well aware of what's happening. I think some of the older, I don't know, stale is the right word. People in the industry are like, it's mine. And even on the management company side, it's like super open with founders, like sharing ideas across the U.S. on how to better run rental properties, manage rental properties, that sort of thing. So I think there's mindset, depends on the industry. But there's always going to be some people that feel like, oh, I got to keep everything super close to the chest. But it's where you get into those paid masterminds where you really, like, if it's very niched, you're getting like people that are willing to share ideas, especially if they're not in the same area, then they could care less about sharing like the good info to help you.
Did you get into one, a mastermind?
So I'm in like two groups now. But early on it was just the open networking, like just the meetups, essentially. I'm in some paid stuff now. That's pretty good. But early on, it was just kind of your normal meetup stuff.
Masterminds are pretty cool, right? Like if you're in a good one, it's pretty.
It's really worth it. Accountability, different things.
Napoleon Hill had it right. Like he has a chapter just about mastermind and Think and Grow Rich. And it's just like, it makes total sense.
Yeah. And that's even why like the content space, like what we're doing today, YouTube, following other podcasters or just video content. It's like you sort of get some insights into some of that stuff without necessarily having to pay for the mastermind group. Like obviously a lot of that content's free, but when you have this dialogue between different, investors, creators, businesses, you're kind of like, instead of reading a book, you're kind of getting that same experience. And even from like a mastermind perspective, like some of those people are really willing to share some powerful like behind the scenes stuff. So it's been fun I'm just always listening, consuming content that's moves the businesses forward. And a lot of the stuff, as you build multiple businesses, you sort of can duplicate a lot of those systems and processes, right? So, or software, or just you don't start from scratch, even if the business is a new idea. You have so much platform where you can just sort of copy paste a lot of that stuff too.
So I want to touch on your entrepreneurial journey and the systems and processes, but just one last thing about the mastermind is I'm holding founders dinners now. I've already invited you.
Yeah.
We're going to do one here in Tampa. I don't know if I'm going to do it in June or July, but I just did one in Orlando, the first one that I ever did.
My birthday is June, so maybe do like end of June. That could be like, June dinner, dude.
Dude, it was pretty incredible.
Yeah.
We had about 8 people, or was it 7? 7 people. We did Capital Grill. Capital Grill gave us, I didn't ask for it. They gave us a private room. I just asked for like a table, like in a corner where it could be quiet so we can talk. And bro, I scheduled it from 7 to 9. I swear to you, I looked at my phone thinking it was like maybe 7:45 and it was 8:45. The conversation in a room full of entrepreneurs in all different industries, it just didn't stop. Like I literally, the dinner ended after 3 hours, and the last thing that ended was literally me asking the last person to introduce themselves. Because each introduction turned into a whole conversation. And I'm like, all right, next person, another whole conversation. It was like, I had never done anything like that. And it was absolutely incredible.
Yeah, it's a really interesting way to do it because I think
it's small, it's private too.
Yeah, because
it's not like an open networking.
I think a lot of people, in BNI and stuff, there's definitely good stuff out there for those different organizations, but it's like, it's hard. It's harder when you're C-level or at the top, right? Especially and so those, like one of the groups I'm in is Christian businessmen, and there's about 10 of us. It's kind of a private group. You're kind of real selective about who you would even invite to the group, like from a business standpoint. And it's not to be like selfish or like this, but it's like you have to protect the integrity of the group.
Yes, I agree.
And I'm by far like a tenth the size, not even like there's 9-figure business in there. These are local guys live in Tampa. And every other industries, I'm the only one property manager. You got 2 GCs. You got a guy that runs a bunch of hospitals, Brain Institute guy in Tampa. So like super powerful guys that are, but like I said, I'm by far the smallest business in there, multiple.
But that's okay
8,
too,
9
because
figures.
I
love it because I'm like most of these guys are at least 10 years older than me, and I'm just like soaking it up. And so, but it's like you get this real confidential stuff. So like we really dive into like personal stuff too, right? Like you got problems in your marriage or whatever, like you're sharing that sort of stuff. But like from the business standpoint, it's about scaling, managing huge teams. Like, some of these guys manage hundreds of people, if not like 1,000. And so it's just a cool way to get that sort of similar feel. And maybe, you're not going into as depth on some of the stuff, but it's a point where you can talk with the other guys that are like the head cheese and like the real problems in the business that you're like, don't want to tell anybody about.
Right.
Or you're struggling with.
You could share the problems, but then also what's beauty about being with, they say if you're the smartest person in the room, if you're the most experienced person, that's not the room you need to be in. So you're in a perfect situation because you're like seeing now sort of what's possible. And even if they're telling you about their problems and issues, and you could obviously relate to them as well, you could actually see sort of, all right, I can get there. It actually exists, Yeah,
a lot of the problems and stuff or challenges can be somewhat similar depending
the same.
Regardless of the scale, the size of the business. It's just like maybe the problem's slightly bigger, but the context is similar. And it's just the same stuff that a lot of people struggle with, or the idea around like doing a round table, or like one member would present a problem or a challenge, and you just get ideas or thoughts from the rest of the group. So it's kind of like that peer feedback. I'm like, have you thought about this? Have you considered this? And that's where there's a lot of value in that last piece of it.
That reminds me, I have a question to ask you about an idea that I have, and I'm only saying that because that's also a good room where you could ask to spitball an idea.
Sure, yeah, 100%.
Where my wife could only give me so much information. My buddies aren't going to give me the information that I need. And even like, there's just so many people around you that they don't understand what you're going through. And ChatGPT could only give you so much as well. So it's a great place to remind me that I need to spitball an idea.
Yeah.
The last thing I was going to say real quick was that the eye rolls that I get when I tell people about the founders dinner and I'm looking for high net worth individuals and they're just like, ugh, okay. It's like, bro, hey, like you said, then it damages the integrity of the group. Because I'll tell you, that group that we had in Orlando, it was a little bit of a mix as far as the net worth is concerned.
Sure.
But it was a room full of fucking hustlers.
Yeah.
Like there's a future in everybody. So it was great.
Yeah.
So you get out of the military, you become a real estate agent, you start selling houses, you get into wholesaling and stuff like that. Tell me about the journey into like the actual business ownership and entrepreneurship.
When I met Greg, who owns TBRIA, he was flipping at the time and we were just doing some deals. And obviously I had real estate license. It was KW, Keller Williams at the time, but I always wanted to have my own show, right? So we decided to partner up, create the brokerage. His dad stepped in as the broker at the beginning. Then I took over when I had the 2 years and got licensed as the broker. And so we built that to its highest point. We had 75 agents. We're less than that. The models have changed over the years, but that's been something that's been cooking. And then so about a year after that, I started managing a couple of houses on the side and doing some Section 8 stuff and whatnot. And so that gave me more experience into the management piece of it. And so we split off that second entity in 2017. And that's kind of when I really had the mental shift. I was like, I'm going to stop doing sales or like decrease the focus there and expand it on the management side and begin, just managing different multifamily, single family houses. So that really grew. We tripled in size a couple of years there in a row. And so that gave us that extra context to like, people could sell the properties, we can manage them, whatever. And then going through all the investor meetups, just that extra context. So when we're talking with investors or clients, we have like, in my perspective, a wider breadth of knowledge from property management, asset management sort of standpoint, because we understand investing, wholesaling, and we understand like that whole dynamic, flipping properties, right? Whatever, operating the management company. But then sometimes if it's permits, plans, that sort of stuff, I'm getting that context from the architecture side, right? So having just extra input of like when people have different problems, I think we have a more comprehensive approach to explaining different variables and things. But started that, and then 2020 is I think when my wife launched the architecture company, and those are like the main three components that we're all involved in now. We had done some hard money lending at one point, and there was probably one other thing I'm forgetting about.
So what are the three? Architecture,
property management, and the real estate brokerage.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so kind of three components right now that we're doing.
Are you guys still all in the same office?
So we're in Ybor now on 7th Ave.
All together?
Yeah, we have a couple offices there. Yep, so we're on 7th Ave in Tampa.
So you mentioned here in your notes, or no, in my notes here, is operational excellence is the key to thriving in today's market.
Yeah, I mean, really a lot of it's just the basics, right? Answer the phone call, respond to an email, text, like in a relatively easy, timely manner, right? If you can't, you're just letting clients. So like, we're always just winning opportunities because we simply do those things, right? Like that's the business basics 101,
sure.
Right? It's just that sort of stuff. And utilizing technology to help us do our jobs better and always continue to like push the envelope. When I'm, put the kids down, I got 3 kids, so it's like put them down at night, 8, 9, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, like those hours in the evenings, most evenings, researching, right? Playing with tools, automation, softwares, like content creation, like the editing stuff we talked about. Like those are after hours is how you can really get ahead if you're stuck in the day-to-day of the business, like throughout the day. And just really spending time on like, can I be 1% better? And that constant approach of like, there's so much technology obviously changing with AI and all these different things of how they can empower you to do your business or your business models better. And so just spending the adequate time to really think about the challenges and forecasting ahead of what's going on with the different businesses. So just trying to put that into perspective for moving the ball forward. And just being always trying to push the envelope in our industry and specifically the management companies where I spend the most time. Industry, obviously, rental property has been around for, since man was created almost, right? And so having a landlord, estates and all this stuff. And so, but the technology piece has really advanced the last, 5 years even. And so for me, it's a super exciting time to be in the management space with the stuff that's coming out. And so, just having that mindset of just always trying to be better, do better client experience, because we have really two clients. We have the owners, but then the residents, right? And so just trying to constantly push the envelope in what we're doing and increase sort of level of service and just how we think about all the different processes and stuff that we build.
What are some of the specific processes, if you could think about, that have become more efficient or profitable because of automations and AI?
So one thing is the thought process around like ChatGPT or just Gemini, any of these platforms. Like my team will use them to strategize different things that are going on, or just very basic level responses. Right? I need to tell this tenant this, but I need it to sound more refined. A little bit more context there. So like very simple use cases, and having sort of a structure for employees to know how to use and not to use those platforms. But on the flip side of it is there's a lot of technology, or the people in our space are having constant improvements with the softwares, where process workflows, automations behind, if you're using Monday.com or just any of these things, where one thing conditional logic, right? If this happens, then what happens next? Tenant doesn't do this, it kicks off this process. If they happen to pay their rent, it actually moves them over to a different stage, right? So all the behind the scenes, like, the management piece, people don't realize at scale, it's probably one of the most process heavy businesses that exists. Like, really? I would put it against, like, obviously not as crazy like maybe manufacturing or something like that, but it's like all the little stupid things that we have to do or keep track of on the back end are the things that happen. There's like so much to it.
Background checks, rent payments coming through.
Yeah, even that stuff too, but just like in general operations of like all the little things that we have to plan for and schedule. And, essentially we're running a general contracting company without, really getting paid for it too. So there's like, all the renovations, all that stuff we do, we have to build maintenance processes, construction processes, paying vendors, we're running really like a couple businesses within our model because of what clients expect us to do.
What are the core services then of the management company?
So I mean, the main ways that we mostly get paid is new tenant placement, the monthly management, and the renewals. Right, those are kind of like big three for most companies in our area. That like there's a fee tied to it. There's a lot of other stuff that could be as needed, or just like depends, like evictions. Right, might kick off a different thing. But a lot of that stuff, traditionally people, I think in our industry, have compressed prices to be competitive. Right, and that's like you have to create the value, or clients are willing to pay at or above if you're getting the right service. So the technology, the AI and stuff, a lot of those tools are letting us to do our jobs better at scale. And then we also do use remote staff outside the US that just from a labor standpoint helps us be more profitable, but also reinvest more into our team, to the tools, providing a higher level without having to actually maybe translate that into a price increase for a client, right? So there's just so many things converging, especially in our industry, that's been like slower to adopt some of the stuff than some of the other industries out there. That's just making an exciting time to really like revamp and restructure the foundation of how the businesses operate. And it helps the investors, it helps the residents have a better experience while they stay in the properties. And again, a lot of these tools are like things that you can sort of duplicate into other businesses that you have going on.
Do you handle short-term rentals and stuff too?
We don't. We have some stuff that is long-term furnished, but we work with Stay Teal-Door, Jared over there.
Yeah.
For the short-term rentals.
Jared.
Yeah. So they're great. They have maintenance component too that we utilize for some of our stuff. So we collaborate a lot, cross-manage a couple properties. And so that whole dynamic too, coming in, getting clients that are like, I was just doing a short-term rental and maybe it wasn't working because they paid too much, 3 years ago instead of buying 7 years ago where the prices were better. And so the model's kind of shifting, and that's another thing that like clients expect us to, even though we're not a short-term rental management company, they expect us to have some basic knowledge of like, what strategy should I look at? So we have to be educated enough to be able to do that, which we do because we're almost business partners with them, how we sort of operate sometimes. But yeah, we still are expected to have that perspective. And that's when I was talking about earlier, we have this sort of wide knowledge of all these different components that your average property manager just doesn't. Like they just don't have the same context.
Strategy and creativity are so important when it comes to even building something as strict as systems and processes. Even like just using ChatGPT. I realize, I hate to say it, I've got people in my company that you can tell they're not the creative type because they don't utilize ChatGPT and AI as much as someone who is more creative can give it more context so that you can get the better answer in return.
It's all about the prompts, right?
It's pretty crazy how like you actually have to be creative to get the creativity out of it.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I mean, I just use it. I use it all the time. I even use it for business strategy.
So do I. I literally have in my library, in the, what is it called? In the projects, I've got one that's called Business Strategist. I give it information like you are a CEO and specialist GPT in business strategy. And I want all I mean, I asked ChatGPT to give me the actual instructions. And I mean, it's fire, bro. Like honestly.
It's really crazy. And it's
not as good as a mastermind, but it's pretty good.
Resumes, creating topics. If you're going to do a keynote somewhere, like if we're going to talk here, if you're creating thumbnails for your YouTube content, like ideas, like what's going to be an evergreen YouTube title versus just like coming up with your own thing. Like there's so much great ways to use it. I've even asked it like, hey, I'm looking at buying this book. I want you to like, read the book or like understand what it's about. I think there's one called Blue Oceans that I was going through, and I'm having a little trouble understanding some of the concept around this book called Blue Oceans. And so like understand the book. Here's the context. Here's my business. Like, where's the blue ocean and the different sectors that I'm missing in my business today for property management, specific to Tampa Bay, based off this book. And it's like, boom, here's all the stuff where you could have blue oceans, which is like sort of new opportunities. But here's also stuff that you might get stuck in, which like was a red ocean. I think is sort of how they positioned it. How you might get stuck into like just competing against your competition, not creating a whole new wave of like opportunity. So that's like a simple way too, how you might use it to really like, just like any book, really, you could just sort of get that context around your business and like, what am I missing? And maybe you don't even have to read the book because it just sort of does it for you.
That's a great idea. Someone was telling me the other day, older gentleman, he'll take a photo of all his medications and it already knows. He'll like upload all his blood work and stuff like that. He'll take a photo of medication. It'll tell you, don't take this. You don't need to take this. You should take that. That's not enough of that.
Yeah. Well, just the other day, there's a weird bug in my house and I'm like, well, can you call it pest control? And I took a photo of it. I uploaded it to ChatGPT, said, what bug was this? And it was a termite.
Yeah.
And so like even something like that, just a little photo of like, the bathroom floor, and it spit out what animal it was, or insect and all this other stuff. So it's dope, man. And that's where it's like just leaning into it. And of course, I think like there's a lot of hype around AI right now, and it's still like, it's moving fast for sure, but it's like there's still a ways to go before it is really impacting certain things, and it's just going to create new opportunities, right? So even if it's sort of taking old jobs that nobody wants to do, it lets us or other people in the workforce have higher brain powered activities, right? So
it's expansion.
It creates leverage.
It's expansion. Every single person. I tell my team all the time, like either you get on board or you're going to be replaced by someone who actually uses it. It makes my marketing team so much better. It makes me that much better.
And when you're thinking about business acquisitions, right? Especially because you're like in the space now, it's using those tools on a business that doesn't understand it there's so much opportunity. Like you come across like we're supposed to buy another management company. I'm the broker of it already, but it's just like I can see where they're sort of missing the mark, right? But if we wanted to expand into another vertical, like we build the management company to 1,000 units, and I want to have 2 AC techs, let's say, just small little AC company, and I want to go buy one instead of starting it. You knowing about all these tools and how to use them, there's upside and business equity or multiples and stuff too. Just understanding how to, if they're already a good operator, how can I use these tools to just really increase the value from day one of like takeover.
One of the things that I provide to anybody either interested in selling their business or maybe potentially in the future doing it is I'll do a one-on-one call with somebody and I'll provide what I call a value clarity report. So I'll take your profit and loss for the last 3 years. I'll take your tax returns for the last 3 years. I will put a valuation on it, but I'll also do a SWOT analysis. Mm-hmm. I'll also do a projection for this coming year. I'll do a projection for the next 5 years, depending on what your goal is. So if you're at 100,000, you want to sell it for 5 million one day, I'll put together an entire projection. With that 1 hour conversation that I have, asking the right questions, getting all the information I need, I'll record the conversation, I'll transcribe it, I'll upload it to ChatGPT. It'll give me the entire summary, and then I'll start creating this value clarity report. Yeah, dude, I've created 2 already, and they're just amazing. And it's not a short. Here's the thing that it's not even a shortcut. Am I using ChatGPT to do it? Of course, but it's giving me such valuable information. I'm putting it all together, and it's just like I told this guy yesterday. I put it together for. He's got a pressure washing business, and I'm like, man, I wish I had something like this when I first started trying to scale my company.
Yeah. You can
checklist and goals I gave him for the next.
You could simply have something on your website where people throw in 5 documents and Gemini, ChatGPT, one of these platforms is going to analyze all of it and create the presentation for you on here's your 5-year forecast, here's what you're missing. Like all of those graphs. And that's what's cool to play with, like different tables or Excel files or different things that you can toss in to get a visual representation of your business too, just using some of those platforms. But the ability to assess, especially in your space, in such a fast manner to get at least a couple ideas, I could see those tools being obviously super valuable to get a quick perspective on, just summary for the client or potential client.
But then I scroll past Gary Vee yesterday. And you know how accurate Gary Vee's been.
I haven't looked at him in a long time. And then just like 2 months ago, I'm like, all right, I'm going to start like just checking him out again. Cause I was like, it's been a while. Let's see what else new is out there. So,
but you know how accurate he's been with his predictions over the years about technology.
Yeah.
This son of a bitch said that in 20 years, your grandson is going to bring in an AI robot, an AI girlfriend or AI boyfriend, and will marry an AI robot.
Well, my brother the other day was playing with podcasts that are full AI voices, right?
Oh,
like
yeah,
they sort
for
of
sure.
learn your voice and it's just an AI where to both guests
Well,
are
I'll
just
tell
AI.
you what I'll tell you what my idea is right now. So I've got the Value Clarity Report is productizing my business. So that's how I'm going to provide some value at a small price, like $1,000 or something like that. I'll put that whole thing together. It takes me a lot of time to do. Obviously, I'm going to process it and then have someone else help me do it. But I still have to get the information, still have to have the conversation, whatever. The second level of that is like for the public adjusting for Advocates Academy for public adjusters, I've got a whole slew of courses, 5 courses that I personally shot. I asked ChatGPT, I'm like, wait, if I want to do this for business brokering for people that want to sell, do I actually have to record all this? They're like, nope, you could use this AI tool. You could use that AI tool. You could use this. You could just put in the prompt with us. We'll do the whole script. We'll give the whole outline and I'm just like, that's what I'm going to do. So now the course of 5 courses that I'm going to break it down to sales and marketing, systems, processes, financials, and stuff like that. For somebody who's looking to really scale and ultimately sell, I could just do the whole breakdown and give it to them like that.
And that's a great example where like the technology creates new jobs for people to do, right? The whole back end piece of it. But then from a production standpoint, if the cost is lower, the end consumer potentially has a lower cost investment, right? So there's benefit created for the whole economy when these technology and the tools advance because you're actually creating new jobs and new spaces. But then also the consumption model can change for whatever your industry is, becomes actually maybe more affordable for the end consumer too. That's also getting that additional benefit of like the back end technology piece of it.
The ones who don't benefit are the ones that just refuse to use it. At least you and I were going to stay on top of it.
Yeah.
What are some of the tools? What are some of the tools that you're using in your property management company for those in the audience that are interested in the real estate, really interested in real estate, but also what are the tools that you use now, but what do you see in the next 5 years in regards to the tech, the tools and AI in your business?
Yeah. So the 2 that I would say that aren't like so niched down on the management that people should consider or just take a look at. One is Monday.com, which can do a lot of different things. You can build automations with it. Or external software to talk to it, like Zapier and stuff like that. That's a cool function. We use a lot of that for sort of managing some of the renovation work. I know somebody that runs a couple thousand unit management company and almost exclusively on that software. So you have to build a lot of that about whether you do it yourself or consultant. But that's a really cool technology platform that you can just use for a lot of different things, Gantt charts, just all sorts of stuff. So it's a cool one, maybe similar to Process Street or Asana or some of those, but I like Monday.com a lot. And but Notion's been one that's been really fun for us the last few years. We used to use it more as like a resource database for the team.
That's where I've seen it used before. And it's like SOPs and video trainings.
We created a whole KPI model in there for all the different pieces in the business, but then also workspaces. So like thinking about how does a virtual or remote employee still feel like they have a work desk kind of. So there's like a space created by roles and all this stuff. But what's cool with a lot of these softwares is the searching capabilities too. Like a lot of them have these AI components, right? Where it's like, if I hired somebody tomorrow and they're like, oh, like I don't understand the company's pet policy. They can just type in our resource database and it's going to search every keyword, every resource within that Notion database about what it is, and it's going to spit it out in text, right? So it's a very simple, like basic example. But Notion is a software that's really impressive for people to use in a variety of ways for their business. We use it, I would say, traditionally more as like a resource for the company. So instead of having your SOPs on a white binder that nobody looks at, it's like a document. It's an area that has all of that stuff in there. You can have private areas for leadership to have like level 10 meetings if you're running EOS models and all this other stuff that you can build out. But it's a place just where all the information sits for everyone in the company to look at something if they need to pull it up. And then we also have meetings, schedules and stuff in there too. And so those two have been like really exciting to to build and use over time that any business owner could use. And the cost is crazy, man. It's so low. It's so low, the cost of some of this stuff from the scale and the ability that you get from it.
I know my answer to this question, but how often do you, because we were talking about video editing in the back and you're diving into that. How often when something like Notion comes up, you like it, it's starting to work, how often do you dive head in and do everything yourself, or do you go and try to find and pay a consultant or somebody who already knows the business, knows that software? Yeah,
it's a great question. A lot of sort of things depend on it. I usually like to try to understand it pretty well before I hire somebody.
Very smart.
We have a consultant. We've done consultants. We've done it ourselves. I usually like to have a pretty good working knowledge of like most of the tools. But again, with all the advancements that they're making, it's like sometimes I'm like, man, I probably still only know like 20% of what this thing could do, right? So I think it depends on time and stuff. I traditionally like to understand it a little bit more. I think you should have a good working knowledge to understand the people that you're paying, what they're doing, if they're doing the right job, right?
I mean, that's the biggest mistake people...
Or if they die tomorrow, right? Where you have an ability to take it over and understand it and sort of move it along to the next milestone. But I do like tinkering with some of that stuff. So a lot of times I've just been sort of building out that stuff myself, but there are points where it's either it's a full-blown consultant to build out all the process workflows, or it might just be something where, hey, we're outsourcing something to Fiverr or Upwork to like get this little piece, or like a little piece of help on this thing. Like I'm building a calculator on our site right now, an investment calculator. Should I rent it? Should I hold it? Like sort of analysis, very sort of basic tool. But that's something where like, okay, I'm going to build it on the site and I'm, through WordPress, but I'm having a guy on Fiverr just mock it up, right? So he's, turn around in a week, right? So that stuff I don't get in the weeds on, but like some of the some of our core softwares I'm kind of spearheading, but every business should have somebody that's doing that. Or like you said, a lot of companies now are also looking at like, I need somebody that's kind of core focus is AI, or looking for new tools, right? In that sort of realm of artificial intelligence. And like, maybe they're not an expert on AI itself, but it's like knowing how to use the tools and doing market research on like what tools are coming up or being created that we could use for our business, right? So it's kind of like a little bit of a strategic role on thinking about how do we use these current tools better that we're using, making sure we're paying attention to the new advancements that they're making, but also what could be coming out in the industry that's usually utilizing that technology that we need to pay attention to. So it's almost, not like a marketing role, but operations kind of strategic, but someone that's creative or has some techie piece to it. So that's something that we don't have now, but I definitely could see us having somebody in the company the next 2 years. It's like more of the strategic focus with that sort of in mind.
Like IT? Like an IT guy? Or just a strategic software, AI?
Yeah, more like a software sort of
we can
minded
try
role.
this.
Yeah, like checking out new technologies. How should we be using the current technology better? But also like new stuff that's coming out. For our business and industry is ChatGPT a better form than Gemini or using Grok, the different platforms too, and what information we're trying to process and just stuff like that. Just somebody that has a little bit more ownership and control and quality control for our team to understand it, sort of being that medium versus me as the owner always having to do that sort of research on new programs. How
many units do you guys manage currently?
We're around 200 right now for single family, multifamily in Tampa Bay.
Is it units? Is that the question, or is it doors? Is it doors? Same thing. How is your military background? How have you used that to ultimately really drive your mission forward with your company?
Well, I think when we started, we talked about just the basics in business. And I think that sort of, there's that book, Extreme Ownership, but it's just sort of the thought around accountability and like transparency, like goes a long way, right? It's, again, it shouldn't be this difficult for if you mess up, which you will, you make mistakes, you lose money, the client lose money, whatever happens, like what's the next step? Like, let's figure out a path forward and move forward. And so, I think that's probably one of the biggest things. It was really when I was working at the embassy, it was us, the RSO and the ambassador, DCMs, which were like the top two positions in the embassy, right? Like very short chain of command at like 21 years old, 22. I'm responsible for all the top secret information on the compound. If we get, Benghazi happens, right? Like Marines were, that would have been like what I would have responded to, like if it happened on soil where I was at. So you're in charge of the whole compound, all the information, all the personnel, State Department. And so like between sort of passing, like, depending on how the sort of manpower was, like at one point for like a few months, I'm like 22 and then I'm like, it's me and the ambassador like direct, right? Like, cause my senior position was transferring and it's like, so like 21, 22, 23, you have this crazy responsibility at such a young age. And I think it makes you mature faster, right? And just sort of the way I was raised too, sort of molded into that. But yeah, the accountability piece, I think is such a big part of being a business owner. When things go right, it's great, but when it doesn't, it's even more telling to the character and how you sort of handle conflict and being able to understand emotional intelligence in people is such an underrated thing that people don't understand. Like, I think that's one of my powers is like the networking, the relationship building, massaging different personality styles, especially when you have business partners. You're really having that context to understanding how to de-escalate situations too, and just like have a calm approach. Like the building's on fire, but you're able to have that sort of what's the next step that we need to get to. And I think that's one of the biggest things. Oh yeah, well, for sure, dude. I think we've called you on every fire. We haven't had a lot, but a few over the years. And that's sort of the stuff that you have to have cool, calm, collected, and sort of. You know, the duck on the surface of the water is going, but his feet are going super fast, right? But he looks chill. I think that's one of the biggest things: accountability, ownership around what you do, and the metrics, and just trying to constantly improve that. But when things don't go the way you want it, you got to be able to still like not stick your head in the sand. You know.
What does reassess and reattack mean?
Essentially, some of that what we just talked about is like you understand. Okay, we're getting smacked in the face. We need to like figure out a plan to like move forward and make it better. And we make a mistake. Okay, how do we improve the process? Was there a bug that got dropped? Was there information not where it was supposed to be that causes sort of hiccups? So there's like that constant reflection and an analysis of that piece of it when something's popping up, whether it's something small or it's like, you know, a pretty big deal, is going through that analysis, which is tough to do because a lot of times you don't want to do it or whatever, but that's where it's just that little improvement, changing the wording on a stupid letter that went out to be like more clear, you know, clarity is a little bit better, or speeding up the time frame of a process that's happening. So
that is a perfect segue to the market right now. Everybody's like freaking out, high interest rate, the economy's going to shit. We've got tariffs going on in China. What the hell do we do? What's going on? Tell me a little bit about the market, interest rate, taxes, insurance premiums, how all this stuff's going up. Like what's the situation on your end? Yeah.
So I try to like have a couple platforms where I'm sort of absorbing information. So when I'm talking with clients or investors or just for my own knowledge, like the All In podcast is a really amazing one where you're just getting a macro perspective, right? And on that's a little bit maybe more political and business oriented, but there's some real estate stuff I pay attention to. So it's like making sure I have sources of information that are sort of objective on what's happening and not this like doom and gloom sort of thing. And even guys that I follow on YouTube, sort of getting that inflow of information that's, you know, as factual as it can be, and sort of this just open mind to what's going on, right? And so when I'm talking with clients and we're talking about interest rates or insurance coming up, all these different things that are impacting the real estate investing space, it's obviously making a huge impact. Yeah, that's why it's important to go to these conventions, like these different conferences throughout the year where you're talking about people across the US and like, am I having a localized problem or is this something nationwide, right? So like in the investing space, obviously transaction volume, multifamily deals, commercial, like there's different sectors that are doing well, you know, warehousing versus, you know, self-storage or multifamily, or like, you know, new construction starts for single family, multifamily, all this stuff. All that stuff's impacted by what we're just talking about, insurance, all this stuff, right? So, but it's something that we have to sort of have a basic understanding of what's happening. So when we're talking with clients, like, hey, the average rental is taking 45 days nationwide, but ours is less than that because of these factors, or this is what we need to do to get ahead of it. And that's a lagging indicator, right? So now that we're looking at properties that have leased, that's, you know, 6 months ago is the best one we can find. That if rents are softening or stable, like we're probably less than that now instead. So paying attention to all that stuff is super important. And then obviously with the storms that we had locally here is like, okay, that's a real driving factor between maybe people selling their properties, buying new ones. Like the market locally has been soft, especially last year or two, especially for rent growth. You know, you just got to be very careful with how we're doing it. So new investors that are building assets and they're going to rent it out, or just looking to acquire multifamily properties or anything that they're looking for cash flow on, there's just a lot to consider. A lot of the deals are not penciling, so that's where a lot of what we see is, for our business, bringing on new clients is like a change of management, or they used to live in the property and they're moving out. But as far as like new acquisitions, buying deals to implement some sort of strategy is just not happening a lot because your taxes, insurance, all that stuff's killing the ROI. And so it's kind of just a weird place where a lot of investors sitting on the side, like if I can get 5% at the bank, why am I going to buy a rental that gets me 7% when I have all the risk of the tenant not paying rent, the maintenance? There might be some tax benefits and some other reasons, but like to me, that should be that benefit, and appreciation benefits are like icing on the cake, not the reason you should buy the deal.
Right.
And you shouldn't have to put down 40% to make the deal work when it doesn't work at 2025 to get into the deal on like the lowest, leverage, highest loan to value. Mm-hmm. And so, just a lot of that. And that's why we're kind of like walking through the different things, or we're helping current clients analyze opportunity costs. Like, is this still the best asset to hold? Like, this duplex in the hood is not the best spot for your capital. Let's sell this and let's redeploy that into a better property or a different area.
You're so much more than just a property manager.
Yeah, it's really like, that's something that we don't do a good job. People just think property managers collect rent.
Right.
And so it's that sort of, clients expect us to have a little bit more of an asset management understanding of like all the stuff that I'm talking about. But like,
do you sit down with your clients like once a year just to say, like, to review it and actually recommend that you sell this property because it's just not working for you?
Yeah, we have opportunities a couple times a year where we'll do like deeper dives if the client wants that. We see it typically a little bit more as a discussion point with our multifamily clients or like strategic investors versus an accidental landlord. And that's kind of what I'm talking about when I'm saying like a lot of real estate agents, property managers like don't own investment property, which I don't think it's a prerequisite, but I think you understand some of the stuff a little bit deeper when you do. And what sets us apart is having that perspective of like, we really understand how to look at this stuff long-term. Is your estate planning in place, right? Are your asset protection stuff in place? Like, do you have the right CPA that's really focused on investment properties? And are you holding different strategies in the same LLC? That's probably not a good idea from a tax standpoint, right? So, and all that stuff I do myself, like the estate planning, land trusts, living, all that stuff. It's such a big approach to investing itself on making sure that you're protected and you don't get sued like, a portfolio that we took over where there's a judgment for like a couple $1 million. So we have to help the courts and the trustee figure out how to do all this stuff. And so that one's been a fun one. But yeah, one little slip and fall and the kingdom comes down. So that's what I mean, where there's so much more that we can do, and we need to educate the public and our investors on like just that, all the other stuff that we can help them with or help them think through, or just at least understand, I need to look into that.
What are some of the tactical strategies that you're sort of using on yourself for your clients, and then also advising your clients to do sort of during this sort of weird time?
Yeah, well, one of the things that I like to really be involved in is like due diligence. So if we're just talking
using
about
that term a lot these days,
if clients are looking to buy properties, which a lot, obviously everyone's like trying to keep an eye out for deals or opportunities, and they're just like hard to come by. So unless you're doing direct to seller marketing, like wholesaling, and you're finding the distressed asset directly, it's challenging to find anything that really pencils. Like I have friends that are looking to do new builds, to do ground up multifamily, ground up business park, commercial, and between the land costs and all this other stuff, and sellers still just haven't really hit reality. And so it's like this soft market where it's hard, especially as entrepreneurs. And I think even maybe investors that are like, sort of like a lot of times kind of go, is to like be patient with the market and what's happening. So like, yeah, you still want to look for opportunities, but you don't want to get into a deal just to be doing a deal. So if the numbers really aren't penciling, or you're having to kind of like really like factor in lower vacancy to make it work when in the back of your head, like that's going to be too low. It's not good for anybody.
Right.
And so you just have to kind of, it's tough though, to be patient. And, I think during that time is where you just sort of look for other opportunities or other areas. If you have support in other parts of the US where there are some opportunities, and you have either family or just connections where maybe investing in Florida right now is not the spot. You need to be in Tennessee or
I told public adjusters months, maybe a year ago on the YouTube show that you need to get licensed somewhere else.
Yeah.
Not just Florida.
Or maybe you just want to lend your capital out. Like I have some guys who are like, I I got some money and I'm making, a couple points and 10, 12% on a 6-month loan. And like, I'm not buying properties. I'm just loaning my money out, dude. I'm just like first position, like it's cool, it's chill. I'll just sort of do this until the market shifts. So I think expanding the knowledge base of like strategies, but then also areas in the US that you might be able to like get into the short term, when market dynamics are better, and then maybe circle back here locally if opportunity presents itself.
So you and I are always talking about ideas, different things that we're doing, where we want to go, where we're headed. What's coming up for you? What do you got? What's the next 5 years look like?
So the biggest thing that I've talked about a little bit off camera too was like the whole video piece of it, right? And really going hard on that from a business building standpoint. But for us, the vision sort of changed over time. But I would say for quite a while, it's been, if we can build the management company large enough, like that's what gives us an edge to, whether we're raising capital or have private investors that lend fund money to us. Like the idea was to have the management component to manage the operations of the properties that we want to buy or that we want to build, right? And so that was the core piece. So building the management company large enough gives us scale to, hire more internal technicians that if they're not busy with management, they can be doing our flips or they can be doing our new builds for us, right? So, or if we want to expand into other vertical trades like, AC or electrician or something like that, if we could build the management company large enough, it gives us the support for all this other business. Like in the last 2 years, we've, done $2 million in just maintenance and CapEx and renovations, right? So like we do a lot of that. We do manage a lot of that project management. And that feeds a lot of small business owners, right? That's cool that we support a lot of businesses through what we do. And so just having that ability to replicate that into stuff that we want to have in-house, let's say, to, if we can control the prices a little bit more, we can control some of the inputs. Yeah, construction materials, not much you can do unless you're maybe buying at scale. But it gives us competitive advantage against other management companies. But as operators, like we might be able to buy that deal that doesn't pencil out because we can really control some of the back end like inputs. So build the management company up, continue to build that, sort of kind of takes care of the rest a little bit.
How do you managing the properties, but also getting in on deals and stuff like that? How do you know when it's like, good to do? Because I'm having the same issue now with business brokering where it's like, I'm the broker on the deal, but man, this seems like a pretty sweet deal. So I might be able to get in on it too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. We definitely take a look at that with like clients that are looking to do different things and if it's going to be a fit for us or if we just recommend that they go on market. So there's definitely like that opportunity where you get a few, or we might just sell it, top of the market for what the brokerage side.
But for the most part, it's the business is management. You stick with management and that's what you do.
Yeah. There's been a few over the years.
Because it's kind of hard to blend the two.
Yeah, we'll get some stuff that'll come through that it doesn't happen very often, but 2 years ago, I got a call for a guy. It's like, I'm thinking about management. I'm running into some GC issues. I have some partners there that I maybe didn't know as well as I thought I did. We ended up just buying that property from him and rented it out. Nice. So that was kind of unique that it was just like literally a phone call. We had one more phone call and we bought the property from him. That's kind of like a rare case. But so we get some natural deal flow from some of that stuff over time. But a lot of it is, on the investing side, I have two guys that we do business with that help also sort of bring opportunities. So there's never been one great source of a deal flow. If we're talking about, flips or rentals specifically, it's kind of been, you get one from a networking group, you get one from a referral, you get one from like a client that wants to sell. And it's sort of like, Facebook group once we found a deal. So it's just kind of like, it's tough, especially when you're doing like us, like our full-time thing is the business piece. Right. The investing side is challenging to have the extra time to look. So it's either you have a business partner or some sort of JV of somebody that's doing the deals where maybe you're doing some funding and getting some interactions, or you have to hire somebody to do acquisitions. Like I think that could be something that, in the next 18 months, I just bring someone on remote that's helping just really take the first look at deals to sort of save that time, right? Sort of like light acquisitions role for different things that I'm interested in. But yeah, it's challenging to do both. I've been blessed to have like the business partners on the investment side that help sort of operate some of that stuff, but then find deals. It's tough. It would be really tough to do it on your own unless you have an employee or like business partner to like really find the adequate deal flow.
I'm a real estate agent, so we can have referral fees. How about that?
Yeah, and then sometimes it's like just good networking with other investors. Like if it's somebody that does flips, maybe they have too many going on and they're going to sell a property, right? Like we bought a deal once from a flipper that like didn't even know how to wholesale. And so we helped him make 10 grand off us, right? So other investors could be a deal source too. or just business opportunities. If you're looking like business acquisitions, right? Just the more business people you know that understand that you're looking to buy businesses. So just like, you know, a few times a year at least, I'm always posting like, oh, looking to buy a property management company or whatever. And like, whether
nice.
I'm really like, whether I'm really wanting to at that moment, it's like just that sort of mental reminder that like, you want people to sort of know that it's out there.
I'll turn on that automation so I could find you one. Ultimately, it's not that hard.
Yeah. Yep.
Cool. Jeremy, where can people find you, and where can people find you? And if you have any good advice for anyone trying to get into the business?
Yeah. So I'm the only one with my first and last name actually. So if you just search,
I know you're at Jeremy Kloter everywhere. It's awesome.
So if you just do that on Google, like, you know, you'll find me, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, all the same stuff. But for the property management company, yeah, just hitting me up on social is fine, or just calling the office and looking for us, or submitting a form on the website and just having an initial chat. But yeah, there's just a lot of cool stuff that's happening in the management space specifically. And, you know, it's a cool business model. Not for the faint of heart, but that's one thing. It's kind of one of those golden gooses within real estate that a lot of people don't know. And it's kind of like, I think there's a higher barrier of entry on the mental part of like, management company, like I want to deal with tenants and kicking them out and like collect rent. Like it sounds bad, but it's like when you know how to operate on the back end, like it could be extremely profitable. Yeah.
All right, real quick, we're gonna have a little bit of fun, a little rapid fire. Coffee or energy drink?
Man, energy. That's what I got here.
Buy and hold or fix and flip?
That's tough. It depends. But I would probably lean more towards the rental piece.
Scale fast or build slow?
Oh man, that's tough too. I've been probably more of a little bit slower build piece of things, the way I've sort of operated over time.
What was more important that you learned? You can't say both in the Marine Corps, discipline or leadership?
Probably the discipline piece, I think.
Turns into leadership.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking about is that component of it, because yeah, it just feeds off, and leadership can sort of vary depending on what you're doing and the scale of the organization, like what's required to lead the team. So yeah, I would probably pick discipline.
All right, that's all I got. I was just being
cool,
stupid.
Yeah, you get it.
Thanks for coming on, man.
Did I pass? All right. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man.